Hey guys, welcome to this video for QuickCurve. This is the latest tool in our QuickTools collection, which is a series of add-ons that Jama Jurabaev and I have been working on for over a year. These add-ons that we've been building together are, really for concept artists, by concept artists, and this is just one video of many that will be coming to show like all of the possibilities, all of the little features and ways that you can just bring your ideas to life by drawing in 3D. And so as this little preview plays, you saw the samurais, the characters, the trees, the tree being drawn. You see that this tool is really all about drawing in 3D. And we're just trying to make that process as fast and as simple as possible. Trying to take Jama's workflow that he's been, working on since all the way back in 3D Code to VR, and now to Blender with Grease Pencil. And we're just trying to streamline that and automate that. So this video is just a simple feature walkthrough, and then Jama will be doing tutorials and I will be doing a part 2 and on this video, and we'll just be going into more detail. We'll be making more videos about the other quick tools, and we're constantly refining and adding new features. And I hope you guys get some use out of this basic video, and then just please stay tuned for many more videos coming soon. Thank you. So once you've installed QuickCurve, in the end panel you'll see the shortcuts. And to activate it, you will press Control F. And now you're going to see a UI pop up. You're going to see a few more hotkeys appear, and you can basically just start drawing. So I'm just showing another little hard surface example this time. I mean, you can do anything with it really. You can do the organic stuff, you can do hard surface. You can use it for kind of quick designs and then to clean up later, or you can just start and be a little more precise and have a finished product. It's really up to you. And that's really the fun part, you just draw and you have a 3D mesh. So besides the round brush, you also have a square brush. You can press Alt-D and it'll switch to square. Okay. You can also switch by pressing Control-D, having this pie menu, you can switch here. But I tend to just press Alt-D. So another thing is the drawing method right now is kind of this freehand. You can press L and switch it to line, where you press, and then while I'm holding you get this. You can let go, and then every time you click it'll create a new point, and then you middle mouse to confirm it. You can also, while holding left, you can middle mouse and you'll get a 2-point curve. You can press backspace to delete. You can press delete to delete the first point. It says all this stuff right here. And then again, middle mouse to confirm. You can also press shift or hold shift, and then while you draw it'll be freehand, and then go back to line. In order to change the brush size, you're going to press F and then hold it and then move the mouse left and right. Then you're going to let go of F. That's your new size. So by default, this direction is set to towards view, and this is a very important setting. So you'll see it starts at the cursor and goes towards the view. If you do away from view, it's going to go back. And I find this more useful for like characters, and then this one is more useful for when you're doing details. And then also neutral is great for most general drawing. You'll just have it in the middle. And then, so we have this Shift M. By pressing Shift M, you have pressure. So if you press lightly, press strongly, it'll draw based on your pressure. But then sometimes you don't want that, you just want that like perfect precision. You can turn on tapering for like hair, grass, or something. And this will do it at the start. So you draw, start. This is with Control P. So this one, it's gonna taper the other way. And then both will just taper both ends. So custom we will cover later. Cyclic is very self-explanatory. It's just going to create a cyclic curve. The random size is basically you press Shift T, you hold it, switch it just like the brush size, and now it's going to choose randomly between this size and this size. This is a great way to get some variation. And as long as it's 0, it'll just stick to the F size. So by default, you'll notice that this is a Bezier curve and it has a decent amount of points. But if you go and change this, you kind of don't get anything. And this is something that we're going to work on later. But for right now, I just wanted to cover a little workaround. So this resolution right now, it just samples kind of the rate at which you are moving your mouse. So if you change this down, it'll sample less often, so you'll get less points. But you still won't have this. Again, we're going to fix that. But for now, if you happen to want to edit this curve, you'll just go down here and change this resolution. And now, see, you get all the good Bezier stuff. But that wasn't really our priority with this first release. This one, it's all about, you know, just drawing exactly what you draw. So you're not hopefully going to need to edit it. But what you can do is you can erase. So if you hold Control and you draw, it'll cut. So that is actually really useful and pretty cool. And now merge to active, we'll just make sure everything is the same curve. And there is also this kind of hidden feature. If you go into edit mode and you draw, it'll connect with your previous line. And that's regardless of if merge to active is on. So when you're in line mode, if you press Control D, you'll get this kind of menu. We'll cover all of this, but for now, just look at n-gon snapping. And what this does is it'll just snap the line mode. You can do this kind of hard surface type of details or like cables, pipes, whatever. And an alternative to this, and this is this crazy idea that Jama came up with, in Quick Deform. So this is not in QuickCurve. You know, you can just use what I just showed you. But if you want something a little bit cooler, in Quick Deform, you can turn on smoothing amount, which just works as kind of a lazy mouse for freehand drawing. But then if you just set this something and then you do something like this, 45 for the snapping angle, and this is, again, this is for freehand, not for line. You get the same thing as that snapping line, but you can do it like freehand. Like how cool is that? It just draws and it'll just snap. This is like the same type of thing, but so much faster than having to manually go in here, just change this. Like so much slower. Oops. Yeah, it's way faster. So that's really cool. Very excited about this and kind of improving it and seeing, you know, where we can take this idea. But there's another thing that's really awesome about this. And I'm going to cover the workplane in a second, but just for now, I'm going to press W. It'll just snap to the plane. So it'll draw in the perspective of this plane. Whoa. This is really exciting. Switch over, press Alt D, do square, perfect perspective, do some door, some pipe, whatever. Very cool. Okay, so now it's a good time to turn that off and go into the workplane. So by default, it'll be in this align view, which means it just draws from the viewport. And I know it's kind of confusing to people, like what the depth is. So what you want to do is you want to imagine this plane that's at this cursor location. So wherever your mouse kind of intersects with this plane, that's where the depth is gonna be. So this is set towards view. So you would expect that it's going to be on top of the plane facing towards the view that I drew from. So if you're here, what you're gonna get is this plane. You want to kind of imagine that it's rotated towards you. So then when you draw, see, it's like that. That's going to be the depth. The depth is the 3D cursor. If you want to change it like to here, now you draw, it's going to be here. when it's at the origin, it'll be here. See? So when you press W in the empty viewport, that's how you do this view align. If you press it and you're over a face, it will align to that face. See, I'm just pressing W, W, and then again to reset that into the view. And it'll update the text and should be pretty clear how it works. And it'll actually align to the view, so that's cool, to the workplane. And also, something that's pretty cool is, even though this is a Bezier curve, if you press W, it'll still align when you press W. And then Control W, just gonna do an automatic alignment. And obviously, you know, if you have like a very high res scene or a ton of polygons, this mode is gonna be very slow. So this is kind of an early phase type of thing, and then you just do it manually by pressing W. And one really useful thing, probably the most useful for QuickCurve, is pressing Alt W. And this just means the first point that you start to draw, that's going to determine the depth. So in this case, I didn't hit any object, so it's going to be the 3D cursor. Here I hit an object, so it's going to be that face. Here I hit this, so it's going to be over here. This is very, very useful. And again, it works with curves. So you can kind of get this like ladder effect, and it's actually useful to have away from view here. So then it's like you're drawing an arm or a hand, and you know, you're just spinning this around, and everything's like lining up really nicely. Oh, and then the other Alt W is going to be, again, first click, aligning these. It's easier to see with square. So see, it's aligning these squares instead of when you have it on depth, it's going to be aligned to the view. So I hope that's clear. Control Shift W. It's going to just draw on the surface. And one thing that this does, which I really like, is if you start here and then you draw off, it's just going to clip it. I hate how in default it'll like just snap to something and like to space. Like you don't want that. You just want it to be on the surface. So by pressing Control Alt W, you'll get along normal. And this basically lets you kind of draw things out of the normal instead of, so let me show you this. So when you're aligned to the face, you're drawing it on the plane. When you're doing it along normal and you draw, it's like perpendicular, growing out of it. And this is great, obviously, for grass, for a lot of just little details. And it's pretty cool to see on a box. You can go like here, here, here. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And last but not least, with the workplane, there's a couple of cool things. So if you press the right mouse, you can actually just rotate it. So that whole, like the way I drew along, you can also just rotate it, and now you have that. And it's locked here. And you just rotate. And so when you press the right mouse, the kind of point that it's rotating around is going to be under your cursor. So here, we're going to rotate here. And you can see this little preview, which is very helpful. Going to rotate here. Here, it's going to rotate around this. Here, it's going to rotate around this. And again, the awesome part is it all works with the curves, so you can draw something and then rotate around here, draw it, rotate around here, draw it. And then right now, it's pressed right up against this plane. If you hold Control and then right mouse, and you move it up, down, you can separate it a little bit. So you're getting an offset. Let's see what this says. this one, I guess this isn't very useful for QuickCurve. This was for a quick shape. Yeah, it's not. But control right mouse and alt will rotate, will spin it. But yeah, you don't need that for a QuickCurve. And then if you press alt and right mouse, it's going to basically, based on like which quadrant your mouse is in. Right now I'm holding alt and right mouse and I'm moving it. And you see it just snaps to the major axes. That's a really useful way to quickly get it. Like you can align the work plane to a face, but then you want it to be facing this way even at that depth. So that's how you get that. And that's just something, you know, with muscle memory, you can do that really fast. But the work plane, the major thing that you need to know is this stuff. And then if you want, you can rotate it by pressing right mouse. And that is it. Except there's also reset to ground. Again, this was more useful for quick shape. We just kind of are using the same code. But if you Control Alt Shift W, it'll just put it on the ground. Okay. So that's the work plane. There's a lot of features there. And, you know, I encourage you to just try all this stuff out. Check out how it works. Check the video again if you need another explanation or to hear it again. Read these, and really it's just like if you use these tools for like an hour, you'll know all of it, because that's how we really tried to make it very understandable and clear. So now we've covered everything here besides this custom, which we're going to leave for last. Cover the work plane, and now let's handle these settings in the lower right. So just to start with, when you any settings that you change, like right now, you know, we've got a random size, we've got a size. If you just press K, it's going to reset it. And I guess there's a bug that doesn't reset random size, but we'll fix that. The idea is you press K and it resets everything to default. So let's go and check out Square Brush to do this twist, just because we're not going to see any twist on Round Brush. So if you draw this, you'll see it's kind of aligned to the view. If you press Y, you hold it, you move left, right, you let go of Y, and now you draw, you get a twisted mesh. This is really, really cool. And this is how I did the twisty tree at the start. That's just lower. Different, you can go really crazy. That's just too crazy. Pretty nice. Okay. Again, K, and you see Y gets reset. So now we can go back to circle, and V is just going to be a random noise. It kind of depends on the scene scale, like all that stuff, but for the most part, this is really useful just to get some of that randomness, although you probably want it to be kind of subtle. Yeah, that's pretty nice. And then just like here you have the random size where it applies it per stroke, this is going to be a multiplier per stroke. So if you do B, set this, and then I here, so each one is getting a random noise in between this value and this value. Okay, pressing K. And then another thing is, so let's say you draw something here. When this has to be inside QuickCurve, as I mentioned. All of these settings are, all of these hotkeys are inside QuickCurve. So if you select it, you press Alt F, change the size. When I say press it, I mean again, you press the button, you hold it, and then you move your mouse left and right, and then you let go. Shift Y is going to twist it. It's really cool. Shift V is going to add noise. Control H is just going to straighten it by removing every point besides this first and last. And then let's do couple different examples here. Oops. When you press Shift H, you kind of like pressing it once does a little like loose circle, and then as you hold it, it gets a little bit better. And eventually this will probably just be replaced with like a Procreate style, like when you hold it for a second, it'll just turn into a perfect circle. But for now, this is what we have. I still kind of like this way because it's not perfect, which is kind of the whole point of what we're doing. But yeah. Okay, so in preparation for using this custom mesh, I'm going to create 3 different examples. First, let's just use a circle, Bezier circle. Convert it to that. Let's draw some kind of shape, something random, it doesn't matter. You do want Cyclic on though. And then let's just create a mesh. I'll just use quick shape. Just some kind of like pipe thing. Okay. So now got these 3 examples. So I'm going to start with, so I'm in QuickCurve. Like doesn't matter, you can have that off now. And so when you have it selected and you press J, you'll see that that changes, and now you're going to be using a curve. So when you draw, you're drawing with that curve. You see that? This is, by the way, where you would use the plane with pressure on and then along with normal. This is a really nice way to do grass. Okay, just a detour. So just back. Okay, so this uses the profile. If you want to stop using the profile, you just make sure that nothing is selected, and then you press J, and you're back to using, you know, whatever brush you have. Okay, so now this one was the curve that we drew, and you don't actually need to have Cyclic on, but you can if you want. And now we're gonna press J, and it's gonna take off the depth for you. Now you're gonna draw with that profile as well. So you can manually create that, or just draw it with QuickCurve. And it tries very hard to align properly. I know the Blender default alignment is just completely random, it seems like. So this tries to at least keep it consistent. But it's still a work in progress. And then again, select nothing, press J, it's reset. And then last but not least, you have this. You might, no, there should be enough geometry there. So if you press J with a mesh, you will draw. It's not aligned right, so it seems like you have to do it like this. Let's try that. Apply transforms. Yeah, so that stuff is still not perfectly figured out in terms of alignment. You might have to play with it, but it seems like -X is the front, and then you apply transforms. And so now you're drawing with this like pipe thing, which is kind of nice. And then in the Control D menu, there's some, you can see that this deforms along the curve. So in some cases you don't want that. Like let's say you want to draw with a monkey or an object. Press J. It's gonna deform it and look really weird. So what you do is press Control D, you turn off this deform custom by curve, and now it's going to be like scattering along the curve type of deal. And then as you can see here, when you select it and you press Shift U, you can change the copies. And this works with the if you have this on, Shift U is just a global hotkey for that to change copies. And that is custom mesh. Again, you turn it off and you're back to normal. It's very useful. We are still kind of working on this, especially with the alignment. It gets very tricky, but it's already super useful for pipes, scattering objects, and especially drawing with the profiles is really, really cool. That's how I did the like ornamental part of the samurai that you'll see in part 2. So now let's cover the rest of the options in the Control D menu. So by default, modifiers from active is actually on, but I've turned everything off. So material from active. Let's say you draw or you have an object and it has a material, like it's red. If you have material from active on and this is selected, it will draw with that material. If you don't have it selected, it'll be default. So this is kind of cool to switch between different materials immediately on your new mesh. And then modifiers from active obviously does the same thing, but for modifiers. So let's say that you have like a subdivision on this. You have a very smooth curve. With this on, as you draw, this one will also get that subdivision. And now where that comes into play and becomes really important are these things. So first, let's do revolve. So let's say you draw like that, and it just immediately revolves for you. And you can control these steps better. But all it's doing is just adding this like screw modifier and stuff. So the thing is, you'll notice it turned it off because it creates an empty at the 3D cursor on that when you draw that shape. So you don't want to be creating an empty every single time. So the way it works is, since this is selected and modifiers from active is on, when I draw a new one, it will be there. If I deselect it and I draw, it'll be back to normal. If I select it again, I can do that. So that's really nice. And that's how all of these work, like for mirror and array. And I know that this kind of system with like selecting it is a little bit confusing, but there are some really nice advantages, such as if you place a cursor here and you go and turn this back on, that's going to like restart this whole process, but it's going to do it around this cursor. Now it's turned off. So if nothing is selected, it's not going to draw anything. And the cool part about this is if I select this, it'll go back to this cursor. If I select this, it'll go back to here. You can get like these really complicated situations set up, and especially with mirror, that's more obvious. So we're going to do mirror, it's going to draw. Now you select it, and then let's say you want some kind of asymmetrical piece here. So you mirror it, and you can work on this, but then you're like, oh, I need to add some details to this. Select this, and now this is going to go. And the one disadvantage to this that you have to watch out for is if you turn it on and you draw, then you Control Z, it's gone. It doesn't save that. So I hope that we can find a solution to this, but you know, worst case, just treat it like that weird Photoshop bug, you know, where it undoes the setting, like just draw it, and then if you're gonna undo it, at least you'll have that object as like a template for the mirror. And then same thing for the array, actually this mirror direction. So you can see by default it uses the positive. So if I draw here, actually I just got hit with that error. So if I draw here, there's just not going to be anything. If you turn this on and then flip mirror direction, it'll work. And then exact same thing for the cursor array. If it's not selected, it'll be not arrayed. If you select it, modifiers from active, it's going to copy over. So I just wanted to briefly go over the preferences. Now, installing it is just going to be like every other add-on. And please, if you're upgrading it, make sure that you remove, close Blender, reopen Blender, and then reinstall the new update. So you have your colors here. You have alt navigation if you need that. You have this, which will just always show the Workplane grid. You have the draw buffer size. This is kind of important if you have a resolution or monitor size that's very different than mine. Basically, it is it's like the scale between are you selecting something or are you drawing? And so how much you move the mouse is kind of this distance. So you want to find something that works for you, that will allow you to select things, but then also to draw small objects. the window buffer size is kind of it limits QuickCurve so that you can like go into the modifiers here, mess with the outliner, and you won't be like drawing things off the screen. But sometimes you might want to use this or change the end panel. So you increase this, and then that'll push the margins in so that you can edit those things. Text size will change the font of the size of the UI. And the end-on snapping sensitivity only applies to line when you kind of just when it snaps back to that first point. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe if you'd like, and just kind of stay tuned for the part 2 of this video where I go through how I build this. And so this video was, you know, very basic, just covering what every button does, what every setting does, and then part 2 from me will be kind of covering how I use it to create something like this. And then I have other scenes that I've been building out with these guys, and maybe I'll show some other stuff too, because you know, for us, what we really like about these tools that we built so far, and our goal building them, was the versatility. And we hope that is coming across in the promos and just the features. And one thing that we're very proud of is the Discord channel that we've built out. And you can really see, it kind of speaks for itself, just the variety of like characters, environments, creatures, environments, all kinds of different stuff, like just little, you know, vignette pieces, little environment props, kind of hard surface or like large scale things. And we're all, you know, people are contributing, and it's been really totally unexpected, but very proud of it. And so everything will be in the description. We hope you'll check it out. And yeah, okay, thank you.